is going to be Penny, and she is in the house right now. Hey, Penny, how are you doing?
Hey, hello, everybody.
And I'm gonna give it a second this time because last time I went live, they couldn't hear you. It's showing on my end that your voice is coming through, but I want people to tell me in the comments, can you hear our buddy Penny? All right, give him a big shout out, Penny.
Hey, everybody.
Sweet, sweet. It's looking good on my end, so I'm pretty sure we are good to go. So, Penny, first of
Yes.
all, I want to thank you again for doing this on such short notice. I got your name through Bethany, who's our volunteer coordinator, and she was able to find you. I've been traveling so much lately that I hadn't had time to book somebody, and you were so willing to be here and share your story. So thank you again so much for being here tonight.
Well, I really appreciate you guys having me. This has been a crazy experience, and I'm really happy to be able to share it.
I'm glad that you're going to be able to share it. I'm anxious to hear your story too. So, Penny, can you take us through how you found out that you had breast cancer? What were the events that led up to that?
Well, back in August of 2022, I had a mommy makeover. And for anybody who doesn't know what that is, especially the men probably, it's where you get a breast reduction and a tummy tuck. And at that time, I had lost some weight, and I still, wasn't happy with the way I had little flaps and stuff. So I had that done. I went to a plastic surgeon. I had a consultation, and 2 weeks later, I had the surgery. What they failed to have me do is to confirm whether or not I had had a recent mammogram. And I hadn't had one in over 2 years. And they should have advised me to have a mammogram before that, but they didn't. And that was in August. And by December, when the swelling from that breast reduction had gone down, I started noticing on my right breast some abnormalities and lumps and things that didn't feel natural. And one of the things that they did with my breast reduction, I opted at that time not to, have any kind of implants or anything. So they had suggested a mesh. Well, the mesh that they put in, your body's supposed to absorb it, and it becomes like a little bra to hold you up naturally over time. And that mesh, in addition to them taking out part of my breast, cut into the cancer and caused it to just blow up. And it's manifested at first as these hard, unnatural things.
Yeah, Penny, I wanted to ask you, whenever they neglected to recommend you having a mammogram, if you don't mind my asking, what age were you and how long had it been since you'd had a mammogram?
I'm 55 now, so that was when I was, what, 50? It was over a year ago now. But it had been 2 years since I had had a mammogram.
Gotcha. And you, other than that, you had been pretty diligent with your
Um,
mammograms?
Typically, I was, but your life gets past you and you don't think
Do
about it all the
I
time.
I understand, yeah.
And I
Yeah.
mean, I should have known better, but I was real excited about having this procedure done. And
Yeah.
then him saying it's either 2 weeks or I can't do you for months and months. And I
Right.
opted for the 2 weeks. And um, then what happened from December when I started feeling this to April of 2023, it started hurting really bad. And I went back to the plastic surgeon. He said it was probably fat necrosis, and we would just keep an eye on it. And I was like, well, it's really hurting. It's uncomfortable. And he just assured me for months and months that it was probably just fat
I bet
necrosis.
that was scary too, right? Like,
It
I
was
mean,
scary
yeah.
because it didn't feel right. It
Right,
had like
right.
it had like angles that were pointy and stuff like that.
Right. Oh my
And
gosh. Wow.
and in May, that last month, I told him, I said, I'm having these crazy dreams of cutting it out myself. It hurts that bad. I mean, it literally felt like I had fiberglass under my skin just rubbing. And he said, okay, well, that's not good. Let's go in and take it out. And when he took it out, he said it kind of wasn't resembling fat necrosis, and it had too much of the wrong kind of blood in there coming out. And they send it off for biopsy. And after that surgery, my right breast just blew up like 3 size.
Oh my gosh.
And they thought it was an infection. And he
Was
called,
it was there anything, I mean, other than its swelling, was there anything else visible? Was it red? Was it hot to the touch? Was
yes,
it dimpled?
red, hot to the touch, dimpled, had red down my side, everything. So when I went back, he called me back 3 days later to talk to me about it. And he had me come in and he just looked at me and just said, at this time I didn't even know he sent it off to be, to go through to check to see if there was anything wrong with the tissue he took out of there. And so when I walked in and he said, "You have cancer. I've got numbers right here. You need to start chemotherapy next week. And I've got these
Wow.
doctors who are willing to see you."
Yeah.
And I didn't understand. And I looked at him and I go, "Are you telling me I have cancer?" I mean, he just said I had cancer. And I was just like, "What?"
Right.
Um, and I was alone because it was just a follow up appointment. And I had to process that by myself and drive myself home. And it was just really
Yeah, yeah.
devastating,
Yeah,
really scary.
yeah, because Penny, I mean, most everybody I've talked to, they were waiting for the call, and in your case, like you said, you weren't aware that he had sent it off, and to
Mm-mm.
have that bomb dropped on you when you just thought it was a follow-up for other things, it's just
Right.
that's like, gosh, I'm so sorry that it happened
And
like
then
that.
because it was so swollen, um, he said, "I want you to go to the hospital right now and check yourself in because I think you have an infection and you need to be on IV antibiotics." And so I was hospitalized for 5 days. I had my first chemotherapy in the hospital. And of course, they did all the scans, the bone scans, and everything in there. And when I got out, uh, I met with two different oncologists. And when I got out, one of them then had me go in and do the MRI, and they diagnosed it as inflammatory triple negative breast cancer,
Wow.
which was the reason why it blew up the way it did.
Yeah. If we take a sec, I want to, because a lot of people are probably hearing these terms maybe for the first time. And just to, I mean, to say it out loud, I mean, triple negative breast cancer is rare, more aggressive, more likely to recur. Inflammatory is just as bad, if not worse, than triple negative breast cancer. And often with triple negative breast cancer, it's visual. That's why I was asking those questions when you said
Yeah.
that. I was like, oh my gosh, people don't expect breast cancer to be visible. Like they don't expect to be able to see a change in your breasts other than a lump. Like the lump is the kind of like that's what everybody knows about, but they don't know about it could be hot, it could be red, it could be dimpled,
Hmm.
all the things that you experience. And
Right.
so I can't imagine how scary that diagnosis was. And when you got that diagnosis, Penny, was it like, okay, I don't know what either of these things are, and you had to go learn about it, or did he tell you in the moment, or how did you find out the aggressive nature?
Well, when he told me I needed to go to a doctor right now, um, I kind of figured out it wasn't a normal situation that you're told. Um, he never told me it was the most serious form. He never got into that with me. He was a surgeon, this plastic surgeon, and he just all along just wanted to go in and cut it and take it out. And my husband was like, "Slow your guns. It's not going to happen." And so my husband's in the medical field and he has a lot of doctor friends. And um, he immediately got me in with the oncologist, and she got me in with another oncologist, and they kicked into gear. And at no point did they tell me this was serious. They just said, "We need to move on this quick. We need to get this done." And they said, "We don't do stages, we do grading, and you're a grade 3," and stuff like that. But what was scary though is when we were in the hospital and there was some mix up with paperwork, and they were doing my bone scan, and we read it when the guy wasn't in the room, and it said that I was a stage 4. And I was like, what is this about? But it ended up that they had just marked it wrong, because obviously stage 4 is once it's already gone through in other parts of your body as well.
Right, right.
So
Gosh, what a
um
I'm like feeling for you right now, like with the whole like first of all, dropping the bomb that you have cancer when you're totally not ready for it, then having
yeah.
that kind of a mistake where you're reading the paperwork and it's says you're
Hmm.
stage 4. I'm just like, I don't know how you're holding it together through all of that.
Yeah, it was crazy.
Yeah.
Fortunately, I have a fantastic husband, and
Yeah.
he immediately just went into nurture mode and took care of me. And one of the things that the friends that I have now that are going through the same thing, I just have to tell them there's just a point where you have to say, it's okay if I just let go and somebody else take care of me. And he was that person for me. I allowed myself to just let go, and he was there to catch me and take care of me through this whole thing. He went to every treatment with me. The very first day I walked in for chemo, I just burst out crying and turned around. And, I couldn't even take the idea that there were so many people with cancer that I'd never known about before. And I go into this room and it's just packed full of every, shape, size, race of people getting um, transfusions. And that first day was so hard for me because it really was the day that it hit me that this is real.
Well, and
And
and your situation from what you're telling is it just moved so quickly. Like they were
it
just
did.
pounding you through all this stuff. And Penny, sorry to interrupt you. We have a couple of people asking questions along the way,
Sure.
so I wanted to try to answer them a little bit. Somebody had asked what the difference between staging and grading is, and I'm not going to be able to give you the medical difference, but generally speaking, the grade is, as I understand it, based on maybe the speed at which the cells divide, and I believe if they divide faster, the grade is higher, and I think the highest grade is 3. I had 3 as well with triple negative breast cancer, so it's more aggressive. Grade 3 is more aggressive than a 2 or a 1.
Mhm.
But the staging has to do. There's like so many details about staging. I really recommend checking out the American Cancer Society website. They go into great detail about staging, but just from a high level point of view, it has to do with both the size of the tumor and the locations of where the cancer has spread. So if you have like like a tumor in your breast and also in your lymph nodes, then it's usually at least stage 2 because you have 2 locations. If it's spread to 2 different organs, it goes up from there. Metastatic means that it's not curable. It's essentially running, in your bones and all over. The stage 4 is the worst of the stages. Again, this is not medical advice or,
Right.
medical, the definition of it here. But I did ask our moderator to take a look and see if she could provide a link to some of those details for those of you asking those kind of questions, because I definitely want to get you the crystal clear information about staging and grading. But I highly recommend checking out the American Cancer Society website, who goes into great detail about that. And then somebody else had asked Penny.
Hmm.
She asked if you're terrified to have a mammogram. It doesn't sound like you were worried about
Well,
that though, right?
you mean before the cancer? Is that why I didn't go?
Yeah, I think that maybe that's what she was asking, but it doesn't sound like that was your case, right?
No, I've had them in the past. I had just let time slip by. And, if there's any good news about this whole thing now that I've had a double mastectomy, is that I never have to have one again. But, you
Amen. Yeah.
know, honest to God, I would rather go through all that pain again, catch it early, and have a lot less um, year worth of trauma that I've had.
Oh,
That's for
yeah.
sure.
I agree. I'm glad you said that too. And by the way, I think we should point out that like letting it go 1 year or beyond is nothing compared to like some folks, don't go for 5, 10 years, and that's when it can
Yeah.
get really scary. So it's really great that you went back as soon as you did. But just to Patty, who says that she's afraid of a mammogram, don't be afraid of a mammogram. Be afraid of not getting a mammogram. That's what I always tell people, because if you
Yeah.
don't get a mammogram and you find out later, you're going to be a lot worse off. And then
Yeah.
Tori said, "Thank you for giving the answer." Absolutely, sure. And I do see that our moderator did add a link regarding cancer grade versus cancer staging, so you guys can check that out. And it's from MD Anderson. Thank you, Jennifer. And I'm sorry, Penny, but I want to make sure we answer some of these questions because
Sure.
your story is honestly it's riveting. It's like it's a really crazy story. So you left off
Mhm.
where you said that they gave you a piece of paper and they had accidentally put stage 4 or written that on there, and then you
Hmm.
realized that that wasn't right. And now take us from there.
Well, after I got out of the hospital, I pretty much I found out that the reason why the pain it was so painful, because I had pictures of it of what the doctor took out, when he gave me the diagnosis. It's because that mesh that they put in was entangled in it.
Oh my gosh.
And so when it blew up like that, it was right on the surface of my skin. And because of the where the position was, um, it caused some sort of um, separation from where my incision was from my last surgery that plastic surgeon did. And I had about a quarter size opening, and it basically looked like the cancer was trying to escape from my body. And I had that opening the entire 6 months of
Oh my
chemotherapy, and I had to go
gosh.
to a wound
Uh-huh.
specialist, and they said there's nothing they could do about it until the chemo's done. And of course, by that point, there's no point because I'm going to get a surgery and they're going to close the skin off anyway.
Yeah.
But on top of everything, I had to deal with this open wound the entire time.
So did you keep it bandaged? Were they giving you
Hmm.
instructions on what to do about it? And I mean, because
Um,
that's scary too, because they're like pumping you full of chemo, which is, a lot of people view as poison, and then you have
yeah,
an open wound, so you're kind of more susceptible to infection and things like that, and then you have this wound, so that's like
right.
rough. So what were their instructions for you for that wound?
Well, it was very frustrating because they kept telling me there's nothing we can do about it until you're done with chemo. And so finally, I just said, well, can I go to a wound doctor? And they were like, well, yeah, you can. And so, I went to a wound doctor, and she kind of took some areas away from it, just that looked kind of like, that they weren't healthy skin, or that the skin wasn't healthy around it, and gave me some collagen patches to put on it. And my husband was very um, religious about just constantly keeping it clean and helping me keep it clean, and really just took care of that with me, so that he was there every step of the way in that process, just making sure that whatever I couldn't do for myself, he could help me with on a daily basis.
What a godsend he is.
Yeah, for sure.
Such a
For
blessing. Yeah,
sure.
absolutely. Wow. So, you were able to keep that under control throughout your treatment. So,
Hmm.
what can you tell us what kind of treatment you had? So you went straight into chemo.
I,
Um,
I went straight into chemo
mhm.
and had two different kinds, and I was trying to figure out what they were with my husband. The only one I remember is Taxol, but it was the kind, obviously, that caused you to lose your hair.
Right.
And
Just
I was hoping
probably.
that I would lose my hair a little bit over time,
Uh-huh.
but what happened was, um, I believe by the third treatment, my hair just fell out in huge clumps, almost like a little wig sitting there on my table. And I tried to be strong about it, but when my husband got home from work, I just broke down, and that was another breakdown moment. And I just cried and cried and cried because I didn't think it would bother me at all, but it did, because again, it's just another reminder that you have something that is in your body that's controlling what happens to you, and through the medication and everything. And it was pretty devastating.
It makes sense. I mean, it just kind of feels like a loss of control, right?
Yeah,
Yeah,
it
totally.
does.
And I bet you the treatment that you had, as I understand it, and when I talked to Dr. Joyce Deshawncy, who she's a triple negative breast cancer survivor
Hmm.
specialist, um, she said that the main thing that they give to triple negative breast cancer survivors is or patients are adriamycin and cytoxin, and
Hmm.
then
Yes.
Taxol, which is what
Right.
which is what I had
Hmm.
too. So I bet that's what it was. Like, did you have what they call the red devil? Do you recall that?
I did. I
Yeah.
had it at the end.
Okay.
Um, I, on top of those that you mentioned, I also had Keytruda, which is that immunotherapy. And those were long days. Those were 5.5 hour days, sitting in that chair with all the people in there that are, suffering. But I, at the end, had the Red Devil, and it's, as you know, it's hand delivered, um, through a nurse sitting there and just pushing it through a pump to get into you instead of through the IV. Um, and it hit me really hard. And I don't know if it's because I had already had 6 months of the other stuff and I was just so weak at that point. Because when I started this, I was 184 and I'm 117 now for the last 3 weeks.
Wow.
So, I
What
mean, it really did a number on me.
Yeah. Did the what do you feel like the weight loss was it due to medication, the chemo, was it depression or a little bit of everything, or what's your feeling about
Um,
that?
I wouldn't say depression, because I really felt supported and in all of this. And I've been working since I was a 14-year-old in Florida at a chicken farm, and I've never had to not work. And this is the first time I've been forced not to work. And you know, I wouldn't say that I've been enjoying not working, but I've been enjoying having the freedom to not have to work during this whole thing. I can't imagine people working and having to get treatments, and they do. Um, and for me, I think the weight loss is just a combination of how hard that was on my body and just not being able to handle a lot of the stuff at the end because they wanted me to continue with radiation and a year of Keytruda, and I decided not to continue. And one of the reasons why I decided not to continue is because of how hard it has affected my body and
Absolutely.
how weak I've gotten.
Yeah.
But also, there's a new um, study that they're doing now where they take your blood and they see if you have cancer cells in your blood. And one of the doctors that I was seeing, he suggested that, and he said that the problem is that either way, if it tells you you do have cancer in your blood, they don't know what to do with that because it's such a new study. But fortunately, mine came back with no cancer cells in my body. So that helped me make the decision that I didn't want to continue on with the treatment.
Well, and what's so good about what you're saying, Penny, is it's just a reminder that, you're in control of your decisions for your health. And
Yeah.
no matter what that is, no one can force you to do anything. And
Hmm.
you get to make your decisions about your health, how you want to treat it.
Right.
If you want to continue with treatment or if you want to, you know, not and determine what's best for you. And I think that's great. I mean, that's a way to get your control back, right? I mean,
Yeah,
that's awesome. I
exactly.
think that's really
Hmm.
good. And so how long ago was that you stopped the treatment?
October the 30th was my last Red Devil, and I had my double mastectomy in November. And then 3 weeks ago, I just had my reconstruction surgery.
Gotcha. And so what was your diagnosis date again?
It was in May of 2023.
Gotcha. And I mean, you look great. I mean, I know you said you lost a lot of weight, but you don't look like, you know, unhealthy. You look great
Yeah,
to me. I think you look
thank you.
fabulous and seems like you take really good care of yourself and
Thank
you've
you.
probably I'm so glad that your husband was there for you. I'd like to
Oh, yeah,
meet
me
that guy and
too.
give him a big high five. I'd
It's
be
my
like,
high
"Dude,
school sweetheart.
oh, that's so cool. That is really, really cool." So tell us a little bit about your double mastectomy and well, first I meant to ask you the Keytruda.
Hmm.
Dr. O'Shaughnessy has talked about that on a few of our broadcasts, and she speaks very highly of it. What were the
Hmm.
effects of Keytruda on you, other than it was you said a 5 hour sitting that you had to have to get the Keytruda, but outside of that, what were some of your other side effects?
Well, the Keytruda itself didn't take 5.5 hours. It was just a long day because they would give it to me. When you start off with this, I don't know if everybody knows this. When you go in for your day of infusion, they'll give you, it depends on your treatment, but for mine, they gave me an allergy medicine and they gave me a steroid, and then they would give me some fluids, and then I would have to wait because every time you go, you get your blood drawn in the morning when you get there, and once they draw your blood, you have to wait for the doctor to review it to make sure your markers are all okay,
Yeah, your
and
white
then
blood cell count is high enough to be able to take in that. chemo. I'm so glad you're saying
Mm-hmm.
this. A lot of people don't talk about this kind of detail, but this is
Yeah.
common. This is what most women go through is you get the draw, you get the allergy medicine, and steroids. So
Mm-hmm.
keep going. Yeah, go ahead.
And so all of that's happening on the day that you're sitting in the chair. And I didn't mention it, but I had a port put in here, and they took it out with the double mastectomy. But I received all my treatment infusion through that port. And so I'm sitting there the whole day just waiting for the doctor's approval from one infusion to the next infusion. And that after you get the two chemos that I had, and then the Keytruda, by that time, that was a really, long day, 5.5 hour day. But the Keytruda, every time they gave it to me, they would give me a piece of paper that I would have to check off any symptoms I was having. So I don't know if it's because it's still new enough that they're still tracking symptoms.
Interesting. Yeah, I hadn't heard
Yeah,
that.
but I couldn't really tell any difference because I was getting them all done at the same time. So I don't know if it caused anything other than the other two chemos were causing in me. I didn't have any way of differentiating it.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, that's interesting that you had all that at once. I'm not familiar with how Keytruda works, so that might be
Mm-hmm.
how it is for everybody. You know, in my brain, I'm like, oh, they do this one chemo and the next chemo and the next chemo, but as you're saying, it's not necessarily like that. You could get one type of chemo in the morning and then have Keytruda in the afternoon or something.
Mm-hmm.
Do you recall? You know, when you said that you lost your hair, you were probably on the adriamycin and Cytoxin. Do you think?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And
Yeah.
then did you lose like I remember for me, I lost my hair with the adriamycin and Cytoxin, and then the Taxol, I lost like all other hair, like eyebrows,
Yes.
eyelashes. Did you have that as
Yes.
well?
That's what I had as well.
Yeah,
Yes.
yeah,
Just complete baldness everywhere.
yeah. I told somebody one time that it would be cool if like they could just like bottle it up, just so we could like not have to shave our legs anymore, just to help out with
Yeah.
that. But but other
Yeah.
than that,
It was funny because I was going to go as Hellraiser for Halloween,
oh my gosh, are you?
Pinhead, but the weather kind of ruined that event, so I ended up not going. But that would have been the best
It
costume
would have
ever.
been. That's so awesome, man. That's the greatest. That's the greatest turn on the whole bald thing ever. That
Yeah.
is so awesome. So, did you experience any like neuropathy or anything like that?
Well, we were really worried about that, and I had to put my hands and feet in ice on every treatment, which was horrible. My husband, actually, one of my good friends, bought me the ice packs that you put as use as gloves and socks that you freeze, and that I believe really helped a lot. I had started to lose some feeling in my little toes, but it did come back after I stopped chemo.
That's so cool, and that's for people who aren't familiar with that. There's a lot of things that they do nowadays to prevent you from getting neuropathy. They even have ways to try to help prevent hair loss, where they have cold
Hmm.
caps. So they
Yeah.
have cold caps, or they have you can put your hands and your feet in ice to try to not get that neuropathy, which a lot of people have to
Hmm.
deal with. So it's cool that you didn't have any of that. Were there any other side effects that you can speak of from chemo in general?
Just the normal stuff you hear, getting sick, extremely tired. For me, the changes in smells and food tastes, I couldn't stand anything. I mean, my husband would sit down next to me and eat something on the couch, and I would get up and go and throw up because I couldn't stand the smell. It was so strong. Um, I could just like if I walked into a restaurant, to me it just smelled like burnt grease, anywhere I went, and I couldn't handle any of that. I lost my taste for meat altogether. I can barely eat it now, even though I can taste it, and it tastes back to normal now. I still can barely eat meat. My husband forces me to do it just
Get
for the
your protein.
protein.
Yeah, yeah.
Hmm.
Totally understand.
But health wise, I just, no energy. When I was doing that Red Devil, I was in bed for a week straight, and I wouldn't even remember. I wouldn't remember time had passed or anything.
Wow,
Um,
that's kind of scary. That's real scary.
yes,
And so you were eating just not very much really because of the change in taste and smells and everything.
yeah.
Yeah. And so
You
you
know,
physically got sick multiple times?
Um, if I did, it was weird. It was usually on the second day of the second week. So I would have it, I'd feel great because it comes with steroids, and then it would start, I would start feeling the effects of it. And I would usually, if I threw up, it was usually like, on the next Tuesday or something between, because I had Keytruda every 3 weeks.
Gotcha. Gotcha. That's awful. And
Yeah.
for those watching, yeah, chemo really does a number on your digestive system as a whole,
Mhm.
and it does mess with your taste. I remember, you couldn't eat anything even remotely spicy or have
Mhm.
heartburn and stuff like that. Did you experience
Mhm.
heartburn that you recall too?
Not heartburn, but the inside of my mouth was burning all the
Hmm.
time,
Yeah.
and it
Yeah.
hurt to brush my teeth. My teeth turned completely gray the whole time. And fortunately, now that that's all over with, they're whitening back up.
That's so good. Wow. That's crazy.
Yeah, but I mean, there's all kinds of crazy stuff people don't think about, like those little hairs in your nose that catch the boogers or make the boogers or whatever.
Yeah.
It's like when those are gone,
Like,
what happens to
yeah, I
all that
know.
stuff? I'm like,
Yes.
instead of being able to, blow my nose, it's just coated with stuff inside because
Yeah.
there's nothing to stop it. People don't
Right.
think about stuff like that.
You don't. That's why I think it's so important to talk about these kinds of things because there are the stereotypical things going through chemo that people know about, but there's so many things that people don't know about, especially
Yeah.
those that are caretakers or maybe somebody who's new to the breast cancer
Mhm.
diagnosis. I hope it's helpful to hear these stories and to hear your experience. I know it.
Yeah.
I know it is, Penny. It's so cool. So, how are you doing now? And you just had your reconstruction. You said three
Hmm.
weeks ago, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
And
Um, that's crazy because the last 2 weeks I've had to wear a bra 24/7, which is driving me crazy. I've never had to sleep in a bra. I've never been one of those people that do that. But Thursday will be my last day of that. But with the cancer as a whole, I really want to express about the absolute isolation and loneliness of it. People go on with their lives. And, before this, I was, doing music and hanging out with friends and partying all the time, every weekend, going off and seeing a band or something. And once this happened, I had a lot of friends kind of drop me and just basically said, let us know when you're back in 2 years
oh
and
gosh.
we'll hang out again.
Oh no.
And sitting in the home all the time and just not feeling well, and then seeing all the posts of all the fun everybody else is having, it's hard. And I've had a few really awesome friends who have made a point to contact me on a regular basis and bring food and flowers over. And I had a GoFundMe at one point, and people donated to that because when I was diagnosed, I didn't have insurance, and that was a really scary thing. And my friends in the neighborhood just came together and started to GoFundMe and really supported me in that way as well. And I've had people drive me to appointments whenever Brian couldn't make it, my husband. And it's just very isolating to to see the rest of the world go by when you're really in the middle of this great battle. And I just want to express that if anybody knows of people, even if you're not close with them, just text them or send them a Facebook message and just say, I'm thinking of you, because it's important to know that life isn't leaving you behind, that
Yeah,
people, still care
yeah,
about what's going on in your life.
you're not forgotten.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's a really solid point. I think you're right. Some people are just like, okay, well, there's nothing I could do, so I'm going to go over here. But
Yeah.
those points of people reaching out were, they are very very important when you're going through cancer treatment. So
Hmm.
totally agree with you. I know there's some people watching right now. I saw Joe on here just a minute ago, and Joe's wife is going through breast cancer treatment right now. We want to send our love to her. And we also have
Yes.
somebody who's on right now who had a revision surgery after having breast cancer several years ago. And she's actually wearing a bra 24/7 right now. So I know her ears perked up when you said that.
Yeah.
She was like, oh my gosh. Uh, Let me make sure I haven't missed any other notes here for you. Okay, one second.
Hmm.
Looks like Jennifer says the Red Devil have a love hate relationship with that chemo cocktail.
Yeah.
Yes, so true. And then yes, our moderator is giving a shout out to Penny's husband, asking everybody to give a shout out to Brian for
Yes.
being such a great husband and having those kinds of support people with you are, gosh, is so important. Penny, your story is amazing, man. It's so cool to have got a chance to meet you. And I do want to point out that you are a singer and a percussionist and that we're going to have to sync up sometime soon. Do you said that you play with some groups or planning to? Do you want to give a shout out about any of your bands real quick?
Not yet. We have something in the works right
Okay.
now that we're kind of holding close until we get it going, and hopefully we'll have something by this fall going.
Well, great. And we have a survivor group on Facebook called Survivors Rock, a Breast Cancer Can Stick It
Hmm.
community. I don't know if
Yeah.
you're a part of that group, but please post in that group when your band starts playing again. That would be
Sure.
a really cool opportunity for all of us survivors to get together and go rock out to some
Awesome.
music, you know?
Sounds good.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for joining this evening, Penny.
Thank
Let's stay
you.
in touch, okay?
Okay, we'll do.
Take
Thank
care.
you guys.
Bye.
Bye bye.
Y'all give it up for Penny. Wow, so amazing. What a wonderful heroic story, truly. Everything that she's been through. Like I mentioned, I just met Penny, so you guys were hearing it first as I was hearing it first at the same time. Triple negative breast cancer, inflammatory breast cancer, just the worst of the worst when you get a diagnosis like that. So having her on here, seeing how strong she is, and hearing her stories and her experience, I know that that is inspiring to you guys because it's totally inspiring to me. All right, guys.